Welcome everyone to the Disruptive Jam. My name is Carrie Forbes and I am your resident DJ, that's Disruptive Jammer, and really happy to have you join me on this podcast. It's a place where we get to talk about all of the things that surprise us, that throw us off, but also become our opportunities. So let's get started. Welcome everyone to the Disruptive Jam. I'm Carrie Forbes, your host, your Disruptive Jammer, DJ, and boy am I excited today. This episode I'm lovingly calling Fueling the Jam, and that's because I have with me today Jen Warrington. Now, if you are a podcast follower, you probably already know who she is. And if not, today you're going to find out. But Jen is also a podcaster, and her podcast is called Career Fuel, and you're going to learn all about that today. So we're going to fuel our jam together, and it's going to be so exciting. But let me introduce Jen. She is the powerhouse behind the Warrington Group. That's a recruitment and career strategy organization, and she's disrupted traditional hiring practices both for organizations and career seekers. With nearly 2 decades of experience, more than 4,800 successful placements, that's a lot.
It is.
And all across North America, she is very sought after for founders, hiring managers, and career seekers. And I think you're going to hear all about that today. But she also launched her business during the early days of the pandemic. And 5 weeks after being let go from her corporate role, that was scaling, multiple six figures, she has moved this business forward. So we're going to learn all about that today. And Jen is known, by the way, for helping organizations attract, hire, and retain top talent through modern hiring strategies and empowering individuals to find the careers they love. So I want to find out how you negotiated more than $1.8 million in salary increases. We'll get to that, but I just want to welcome you here to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I just went through a whole list of your background.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about getting into this show is really figuring out the who you are.
Right.
And so I want to go back to that moment in the pandemic.
Okay.
That time when all of a sudden you're disrupted. What's going on?
Yeah. So mine starts a little bit before the pandemic itself. So it was, if you were traveling, just be careful, not kind of don't leave your driveway, don't talk to your neighbors, and don't see your family if they don't live with you kind of thing. But I had been with Manulife for almost 10 years, and they were going through a global restructure, and I did not think in any way, shape, or form that I was going to be impacted because recruitment was busy and always is. And if anything, I thought we were going to get another recruiter on our team. And I got a message just after Family Day in February. It said, do you have a few minutes to jump on Skype? And I was like, sure do. And then I was like, now I have a whole lot of time because I found out my role was being eliminated as part of that restructure. And so that was February. I had to work 5 more weeks, close out my role and all that. And in that time, again, pandemic was still swirling, but it wasn't full blown. Again, you can't literally do anything. And I was just like, I want to go on my own. I've wanted to go on my own for a long time. But again, when you have a stable salary and you've got responsibilities and mortgage and raising humans and all the things, it just didn't really feel like it was an option. So on my last day, which would have been March 31st, 2020, I couldn't even go into the office to take back my laptop or say goodbye to anybody because we were all at home. So that was earth-shattering for me because, like I said, I didn't see it coming. I had no idea that I was going to be impacted. And then you add the pandemic into it, and then it was like, okay, I've got to figure out how I'm going to do this from my dining room table with no computer and no way to go buy one because you weren't allowed to go shopping unless it was essential. And at that time, a computer would not have been considered essential. And so then just kind of plugged away behind the scenes to go, what do I want it to look like? How do I want to do it? And what am I going to do? And just started.
That starting point, I find, and many entrepreneurs have a moment, that pivot moment. Mm-hmm. So here you are, and you've got 5 weeks, and then you're like, then what?
Right.
What's your mind state at that point?
At first, like I said, I felt like, well, was I not doing my job good, and what was wrong, and whatever. And then it was, screw it. I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to go all in because I've wanted to. I had 6 months of severance. So I knew I had a little bit of runway. Didn't think the pandemic was going to last, 2 years or whatever it was. So I thought, okay, if I could just get through 6 months and start to have enough income that's maybe not fully replaced my salary, but was like having me on track. So at first, like I said, it was like, what did I do wrong? And was I not good enough? And like kind of all the things that we talk about on the podcast of like, none of that is true. And then it was defiance. And then it was like, I'm doing it and it's going to be fine. And I was offered a position from someone that was the very first person who hired me into recruitment actually. And was like, when are you done? When do you want to start? You can run a branch. My husband was like, oh, that's such a great idea. Like you'll have a good salary. And I was like, no. And he's like, oh, I don't know about this. So it was really working through kind of that mindset trepidation for him. But I was like, no, give me the 6 months and let's see where we land. And then just didn't look back.
What I love about this, okay, is the lack, what I haven't heard is fear. You had some, and so I'm seeing, okay, well, what did I do? But then very quickly you turn to, and I love that word, like defiance. Like I see the rebel. And what I see there is passion building. So tell me a little bit about that. What was that push that got you to go, yeah, I'm doing this? Yeah,
I would say the fear wasn't at the beginning. So I think it was probably like being blindly naive to the fact of like what this was actually going to look like. But the fear has come later, like, cause we're about 5 years in now. So the fear has come over the last, I'd say 12 to 18 months at different points, because now it's not Jen, independent consultant, trying to make her own income. It's I've built a team, we're growing, we're scaling. And then, hey, I actually have a plan that I want to build this and sell this at some point, which the big hairy goal back then was replace the Manulife income, get to do work that I love and be able to do it that I was my own boss. And now it's completely different. So the fear didn't creep in at the beginning. I think I was just so full of piss and vinegar and defiant that I was doing it. And when people were telling me, don't do it, it's too risky, you're too ambitious, set lower goals, I really was a big middle finger F you. So I don't think I had time to be scared because I was trying to push back against the people who were scared for me. But as we've grown and evolved, then there's I'm responsible for other people's incomes, and I am responsible for trying to take us outside of a market that we're very comfortable in and those things. So the fear is more now than it was then.
I do understand that. And it's funny, I talk to a lot of organizations and startups that start to move from, I'll call that big dopamine energy, right? That I'm going to do this. And then you get into a maturity stage. And like you said, you've taken on more responsibilities that are beyond yourself.
Right.
So how do you balance that then? How do you balance that drive plus now this sort of enhanced responsibility?
Some days I don't think I'm good at it, to be honest. Like there's some days where I'm like, man, I'm crushing this and this is amazing because I love what I do. I never feel like I'm working. When I'm in work mode, like my energy is super high and it fills my cup. But then I have moments where I'm like, okay, first it was, Jen, you're going to be responsible for your own income. That's scary. But now it's like, I have a team of 3. We're probably soon going to be a team of 4, if not 5. And so just kind of moving through all the dynamics of that, like one, you have to be open to learning and you have to be vulnerable and be like, I'm not good at this. Like I'm a great recruiter and I know that because that's what I've been doing. But then you add in like business owner and you're like, you got to chase people for money sometimes, or you've got to hear no, or you've got to give feedback to your team. And that sometimes it's hard. And a small team is very tight. So when you have to give that feedback, you feel like you're telling it to a friend, even though they're not. So just kind of balancing all of that has been a lot of learning. I had no rule book or no playbook. I didn't follow a traditional career path where I've kind of got the technical stuff and I could implement it. For me, I just really made sure that I surrounded myself with good people that I could lean on or ask questions. And then I also just really made it like flexibility was so important for me. So I need to know when I can walk away. Sometimes I'll work on the weekend and sometimes I'll work at night, but I never miss a hockey game. I never miss a volleyball game. If I do school pickup, I get to have all that. So I think I've balanced just kind of all of the emotion with that by actually integrating business and personal so that it does bleed together, not always a good thing, but that I can step away.
What's interesting now of what you just mentioned is I think this concept of work-life balance is really, I think the intent was to try to have a life that
it's not really a thing.
It's not.
No.
And so I think people talk now about integration and that, and you have some times where perhaps there's a lot more energy being put in one sphere than another, but overall we're making it work.
Yeah.
I imagine in your previous role beforehand, you were, in corporate environment.
Right.
And probably my question for you is, what were the things that you wanted to let go and not bring into your new space?
Yeah. I will say that I was very lucky at Manulife that they were piloting work from home before work from home was really a thing. So I started in 2010. And by 2012, I was already working from home 3 days a week. And other people, that wasn't a thing. So from a flexibility perspective, I had a really good routine. My husband at the time was an undercover police officer, so gone quite a bit. So I always had to have flexibility because that job is extremely demanding. And there's no, hey, can you pick up from school because I'm running late? That just didn't work. So for me, what I wanted to leave behind wasn't so much about how I was integrating things because I had that as such a foundation for so long that it afforded me. What I wanted to leave behind was the clunky processes of the work that I was doing so that I could do it in a different way that would allow people to want to work with me because I brought a fresh perspective. So I left behind some of the corporate feel, even though we still try to implement it into the work we do today, if that makes sense.
It does, but I think a lot of it, and this is where when I see people who are being disruptive, it's not about necessarily throwing out everything we have and starting something completely new. It's often building on and transforming something into something better. So
yeah, absolutely.
What would be some of, I guess, the key things that you feel you've taken and made your own and that you think are maybe some of the legacy that you want to leave in your business?
So I think, being in recruitment, especially when you're in what they call agency world, so you're an external vendor, there were a lot of things that I didn't like because one, I started an agency, so I already had walked that path. Then when I worked corporately, I had people in agency world trying to work with me. So I sat on both sides of that table for a long time. And so what I wanted to be able to do is say, if I'm going to be an external resource to someone or an external vendor, I want them to feel like I am part of their team and that I'm embedded inside their organization. And recruitment is not just here's some resumes and let us know who you're going to hire. And so I have taken how I did it corporately, because then you're sitting with stakeholders, right? And you're like, here's how we need to do compensation and job descriptions and employer brand and candidate experience. So I wanted to take the corporate feel that I have, but I wanted to have this, I guess, independence and this flair around not everybody's going to fit the checkbox. And you have to be open to trusting that I can see in people what maybe they don't even see in themselves and take a chance on them to hire them. So I'd say for me, I guess the legacy part would be, for me, big picture, I obviously want my kids to be super proud of me and be like, if my mom can do it, anyone can do it. But I think the legacy for me is that I want people to go, if we can trust who Jen is recommending to us, whether it's the person or the process that we're going to use, because I don't see it as a checkbox. I really see it from a human element and how it's going to benefit the business. And maybe that's a bit of a superpower.
Well, when you think about the world of recruitment, just like I see this so often in the tech world, we create systems and processes to try to move things forward. And sometimes the systems overtake the human side, right?
Yeah.
So on your journey then, that helped you to develop, I'd say, these beliefs and the superpower.
Yeah.
Were there people along your journey that helped shape that in any particular way or maybe demonstrated for good or bad?
Yeah.
I'm doing that or I'm not going to do that.
Yes. I think there's been a lot of people that I'm like, man, I kind of want to be like them when I grow up. And then I think there's people like, I'm totally not going to do it that way. It doesn't align to me. I think my biggest North Star has always been my mom. I watched my mom have very little education and run a business for a family for 31 years and just absolutely crush it. And if I don't know it, I'll figure it out and teach me and all the things. So I think that from that perspective, I really lean into, if she were still here, what would she be doing? What kind of guidance and support would she be giving me? And I've really leaned into that. But I've had a lot of people say oh, you can't do it this way, or, you've got to try it. You got to do this, or I've had people say, don't be too ambitious. Don't set this crazy goal of you're going to hit 7 figures. Be happy with a half of that. And I'm like, and I did say, F you, this is how I'm doing it differently, right? And I think when you're looking at people that, everybody wants everyone to win, but everyone is also scared when people win, right? So you get lots of feedback and lots of advice. I've just really tried to lean into how can I just be authentically myself? And if I make a mistake, I don't believe that failure and perfection exists. So I don't believe that I'm failing if I make the wrong mistake. I might do something differently the next time to not make that same mistake. But I really want to be able to be like, this is who I am. I don't have fancy degrees backing me up, but I've got 18 years of experience of kind of grinding it out and learning, and just always being open to learning from people that are either a few steps ahead or just that I feel they're being authentic with me and that they're trying to give me good insight that I can take from it what I need.
So that really is at your core value, authenticity.
Yeah.
Being, and I love what you said earlier about finding those things in people that they themselves would not see.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. And as a business owner, if you were to flip the mirror, because I'm sitting here thinking you could be talking to yourself, really.
Yeah.
Right. But if you were talking to yourself, and you were trying to, I know I can see the face. Like,
I know I should.
I hate talking about myself, right? But that what I think is really fascinating from the perspective of someone in the recruitment business. And I hear a lot today, especially younger people, it's so hard to get in there. It's so hard to be seen. And you've got a lot now of AI and tools that are kind of in the way. What would you do to I guess, if you were that person starting out, what advice would you give to help people sort of think through, like, how do I get my authenticity through?
Absolutely.
How do I do this?
This is awesome. We just literally recorded this podcast episode before you and I got here. So this is wicked.
So stay tuned for
That's
that,
right.
folks.
So Connor's getting a double dip at the moment. But so for me, and again, I'm the kind of person, as if you tell me no, I'm telling you too bad I'm doing it. I don't say it as nicely. And I am very polished and very professional, but I get very fired up when people don't believe that they are capable, or that, I get a lot of I'm unhireable, or no one's going to pay me the salary that I want. So for me, it is very much, let's get clear on what is important to you, what are you good at, maybe what you're not good at, because that's as equally important, because there comes confidence inside of that. You can build momentum. If I wanted to be a brain surgeon tomorrow, I'm following a different path than if I wanted to pivot and go in a different direction. And I think when people have the opportunity to talk to someone that can help guide them towards some clarity, which will give them some confidence, then they go, oh, I am good at that. Because a lot of things that we as humans are good at come naturally to us. And so you assume that everyone else is good at it too. And then when you find out that they're not, you go, oh, that's what starts to separate me, right? And I had an opportunity to go on CTV Morning Live. It was around Women's Day. And they asked me to submit questions that they could ask me around, like, women in pay gaps and women in business. So we prepared and sent all these questions. And then I got on in your live TV, and they didn't ask not one question that I had provided. So it was, okay, I've got to fly by the seat of my pants and figure it out and make sure I'm articulate and not thinking, oh, I don't have anything prepared. And after, my husband said to me, oh my God, you did so good. And that was great. And I was like, they didn't ask any of the questions I submitted. And he's like, what? I'm like, not one. I had no idea it was coming. With the first one, I was like, okay. And then the second and whatever. And he's like, I was sweating watching you. And I was like, really? And he's like, I would not be able to do that. But I just figured it out. So I just figured that everyone else would. So as we go through conversations, I really want people to go think about what you're good at, or what someone comes to you for, because that's something that probably comes naturally to you and you assume everyone else can do it, and that's not the case, and build some of that momentum. And then I am 100%, I think every episode we record talks about go on LinkedIn and start to build your network and have authentic conversations, not slide in the DMs, but like really leverage the LinkedIn network to your advantage.
So as you were describing that experience with Women's Day, it did spark for me. A lot of women in particular really struggle with being able, and I count myself in that.
For sure.
And I find that a lot of times what you just said about, we have expectations that others might be able to do these things.
Right.
I kind of have that, but almost in reverse, that like, oh, am I, my skills are kind of just like bland, I'm just like everybody else in that way. But I found in doing my own sort of personal work, sometimes some of that comes from the ways we've been socialized as women, the way that we are here to kind of be helpers and not
Right.
always lead in that way, not be as ambitious.
Yeah.
How have you found that in your role? Have you seen more of that, or
Like, have I seen more of that from other people?
from other people, and even maybe even parts of your own journey?
Yeah. So I would say that I'm very fortunate that I've always had strong women around me, right? So I don't subscribe or lean into, because I'm a woman, I need to like shrink back. I think sometimes I've shrunk back because I'm not confident in my ability to do something, but I don't necessarily tie it to the gender piece of it.
Right.
But again, my mom figured it out, and so I watched her. And then I now have really great people around me that I'm watching from the sidelines, and I'm sure they've had moments where they've shrunk back, or they feel maybe because they were a woman in a room full of men trying to negotiate a project or something. But because I don't think I've seen it that way, I haven't let it seep in. I'm also raising a 10-year-old who thinks that she's already 25. And so it's very important for me that she be able to know that she can do whatever she wants if she puts the time in. And I don't ever tie it back to gender in that regard. But I think women play small, less because of their gender and more because just naturally we help. Right. And so I'm trying to be helpful as a leader.
Right.
I have great people on my team and they're amazing. And everyone has different areas where I need to support them different than others. And I really try to lean into, let's build your confidence because you're good at what you do. But let's kind of like bring in, like if you've got anxiety or you're not sure how to communicate something. So I'm trying to help by leading.
Yeah.
And I maybe disrupting that a little bit and
modeling.
I try, but I don't want to shrink back because I feel like I'm almost 50 and I've shrunk back a really good chunk of my life, just personally, just because there is no rule book, right?
So so here you are now,
Yep.
and things are rolling. You got all kinds of things. What's next for you, or do you have thoughts, or is it at this point just letting it roll?
Yeah, so I let it roll for the first 4 years. We'll be 5 in September, and it was coming fast and furious. And I'll be really honest and say that I didn't know what I wanted the next thing to be, and then my husband and I were having lunch one day and he was like, so like, what's the plan? Are you going to like work till 55? Are you going to work to 60? Do you want to sell it? Like, and I was like, I don't know. And he's like, what do you mean you don't know? And I got really defensive because I couldn't answer the question. And then as you know, when it comes to spouses, then you kind of like, oh shit, I feel like I should have had a better answer. And I drove away and I was like, I don't know what I want. And I want to be able to figure that out. And so I reached out to someone that is a mentor of mine. And I said to her, I couldn't answer that question. And I got really defensive. And so that made me mad. And I want to I kind of want to know what it is that I want. So the big goal for me now is not just, create something that I don't have to work for someone else. I want to take this global and I want to build a really solid team and eventually sell it. Or maybe one of my kids would want to take it over. I mean, that's always I built this and now it can be yours. I do think that it would probably be my kids will see what I've done and follow their own path to do something that I don't think they're ever going to grow up to want to be in a recruitment space, but who knows? But for me, I want to leave a really big impact with organizations, but with career seekers. And I want people to know that no matter what you do, if you're doing what you love, there's a lot of it that comes naturally. And it's that you don't have to always rely on, AI is a factor and education is a factor and all these things. But most people are slowing themselves down because they don't truly know what they want. And then they're following an outdated process of apply to this job or do this career because it will make you good money. And I think it might have been you when we had conversation around like people for computer science think they need to have the degree when really they're apprenticing them now because the education becomes obsolete by the time they're done. And so I'm talking to parents because my son is almost 17. I'm talking to parents about think about those things before you're pushing university because we don't know what that's going to look like. And so for me, I want people to be authentically themselves because I think they're happier. It just so happens that I'm talking authentically about careers and then how businesses can position themselves to be a company that has strong values that people will want to be a part of.
Well, I think that is a great way to sort of wrap up this conversation, whereas what we started, it's really best advice, true authenticity, really being yourself and not being afraid. And also I love that, not discounting your talents that are there. Yeah. Right.
And be okay sitting in the quiet to figure out what they are. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jen, we could probably go.
Yeah, I could stay all day.
We could have done like a 2-hour long form.
We could have.
But I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
And again, if you're listening, make sure you tune into the Career Fuel. And also check us out on the Disruptive Jam, wherever you get your podcasts. Wow. Was that not an amazing episode with Jen Warrington? What I am so impressed that she is so consistent with who she is, what she stands for, her core values, and that is what carries all of us through change in life, but it is what fuels us to be better than we were, to make those leaps, to do things that maybe make us uncomfortable. And we can see in all of the examples in her mixtapes how that is what real success in business, in life, is all about, just being yourselves. So I'll leave it there, and in the meantime, keep jamming, and hope to see you next time on the Disruptive Jam.